All right, thanks so much for staying with us. And there's been lots of reaction to the decision by City Power to implement the 200 Rand prepaid charge. Now, the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, for example, is calling for the scrapping of the new fixed charge, after saying that this charge will have significant financial repercussions on communities, especially those who are most vulnerable. Let's now have a conversation. Nqobani Mzizi, City Power Revenue Enhancement Senior Manager, joins us live now. Mr. Mzizi, thank you so much for your time. I do understand, before we even get into a lot of issues, there was this error that was made when it comes to some of the tariffs, residents being charged some of the business tariffs instead. Let's talk about how that happened and how then do they begin to rectify it.
So thank you so much, Bongi, for having us and the opportunity to clarify this matter. In the process of migrating customers from the old regime to the new regime, we relied quite extensively on the names of the customer. So there are customers whose names, whose accounts rather, were written in their business names. So we then made an assumption that those were business customers, only to find out, Bongi, that those were in fact residential customers. When we got to find out and got wind of that, what we then did is we reached out to all the customers who were affected, or rather we sent out a general communique and said, if you are affected by this, do come through, and we converted whatever that they had bought with into units. So that we have rectified. It was in the region of around 150 to 200 customers. So that is already sorted. So
all the customers have already received either a refund, or what happened? How did you resolve it?
In fact, we don't give a refund. We convert what they would have bought with into tokens. Okay,
so let's now look at this issue of the 200 Rand. I'm sure you've seen it, and there's been a lot of talk about it and a lot of reaction. I wonder then, before we even get into some of what has been said, what is your reaction as City Power to some of what has been said? You think about OUTA, you think about some of the residents who are calling for the scrapping of this 200 Rand charge.
Any change, Bongi, at this time of the year, whenever we implement new tariffs, always attracts some form of comment or feedback from people. So this is not something that we were not prepared for, at least. I guess the only change in this instance is that the quantum of the change, being an additional 200, which we have disclosed separately, is the one that brought out the likes of OUTA and anybody else who felt aggrieved. I mean, we increase our tariffs annually by whatever that the regulator approves for us to do, and this year was absolutely no different to that. But it's just that 200 that has caused that noise. And unfortunately, we decided, well, it's not unfortunate, rather, it's a choice we made to disclose it or to separate it from the unit cost and put it out separately, whereas other municipalities will build this into their unit price. So I guess it's the modality that we chose to incorporate the service fee that is bringing up this huge uproar.
I suppose one can then commend you for not hiding it in terms of maybe putting it as part of a charge. But do you understand the outrage here, especially when you look at the cost of living?
100%. I don't think the sentiments of the outers and everybody else who's aggrieved is anything to ignore. Of course, it's valid sentiments, and I too am affected. I can tell you that much, because I'm a prepaid customer. So and it is affecting me as well in my pocket, as it is affecting the total population of our customers, excluding those that are indigent. So I fully understand what they are crying about. It's just that there was no other way for us to incorporate this, or at least to raise this fee, because prepaid customers are not historically contributing towards the service charge and the network charge, and therefore we had to make a decision of how do we do this. So to your question, or to your point, indeed, the outrage is acceptable, is understandable, but it just had to be something that had to be done. We had to choose the lesser evil with which we would apply this, and we decided on this particular modality.
I'm going to get to communication of this in just a moment. But speaking about it being a lesser evil, I want you to listen to this particular post that I found, while doing research on change.org, for example. One resident, Sean Fenter, writes, I reside on a property equipped with 6 prepaid meters, each burdened with the outrageous service fee of 200 rand imposed by the city. Multiply this by the number of meters and City Power profits 1,200 rand monthly just off our property alone. Contrast this with other properties which possess only 1 meter and are expected to pay just 200 rand. This definitely is a significant increase for this one Sean Fenter, who has to now pay 1,200 rand extra.
Sean Fenter, from where I sit, is a bit too sensationalist, and I'll tell you why. Per property, we only have 1 point of supply. And with 1 point of supply, what do? You only pay 1 service fee. So probably Sean Fenter lives in a complex or in an estate where each person has their own sub-meter. And the sub-meters would belong to the property owner. So we would not put in 6 points of supply to one property. It is impossible. We do not put more than 1 point. So his case does not align or is not in line with the way that we do things. So it's not a City Power or a COJ property that we supply. We can't do 6 on one property. It's impossible.
All right. So let's then look at the issue of communication. OUTA is raising this as a huge issue. OUTA is saying that there are concerns around poor communication as far as this particular issue is concerned. They say that there were no public engagements on how this particular decision was reached. And it's not just OUTA. A number of residents are saying that while you are conceding here to say that the disclosure was there, you decided to make sure that residents know that this is a charge that's coming. But it seems it was not communicated effectively.
Maybe it would be effectively that we could argue on or maybe speak about, but the communication was done, and I'll tell you how it was done, Bongiwe. I think you would understand better than many, and it's incumbent, I guess, upon myself to educate people that when any changes are done, tariff changes or any form of change is done, what traditionally happens is that there are IDP sessions that happen where we go and meet with our residents within the city of Johannesburg. This is not only for Johannesburg, by the way. Every municipality is compelled by the MFMA to do such. So we did do that. That's the first thing. There was proper engagements.
When did you do that?
IDPs ran throughout the months of March and April. And it was during that time, Bongiwe, when there was that election fever and so forth and so forth. Historically, when there's IDPs, the number of people who turn out is generally high, and even much higher than those we saw this year. I think election fever is the one that had taken people's attention from what we do annually. So we did communicate. That's the first thing. The second thing is this goes through council for approval. And as you would also know, in the month of April and May, it was widely communicated that there was a deadlock with regards to the approval of tariffs within the city of Johannesburg. And the reason why I say it's widely published, it means that councillors and the representatives of those very communities who may say that they didn't know are a part of the people who approved the tariffs of the city of Johannesburg. So they too would have communicated to their constituents of this, because the councillors are the face towards the communities, and they're the ones who would ordinarily or communicate with the communities with whatever change that is about to happen. But be that as it may, people would normally come, and I mean, not people, sorry, the IDP is the tool that we use to engage with our customers. So yes, we did communicate. Maybe it's the effectiveness, and maybe it's given the time of what was happening that maybe people missed this, or they took it for granted to think that it's normally the thing that happens all the time, and they didn't show up. But so we do have evidence that we communicated. So
Nqobani, finally then, given that particular technicality that you say, maybe people, it was election fever and all of that, and then you're seeing what's happening in the public domain as well, with organizations and residents wanting to be engaged on this as well. Are you going to be doing this? And if you don't, should they take this matter to court? Do you think it can stand legal scrutiny?
So to reverse the charge is off the table, at least for now, because it is a charge that was approved by the regulator. Again, as you would know, we work in a regulated environment, and the National Energy Regulator of South Africa has approved this charge, and council in and of itself has already approved it. So we do have approval from the authorities as well as from the Council of Johannesburg. So the charge is going to stand. Secondly, the charge contributes towards a significant service, and that has got to do with maintenance of the infrastructure that brings the power to the people, as well as contributing to service fees, which are contributions towards fixed costs or operational expenses that we need. So the charge is important for us so that we can deliver the service. So in it going to... Okay.
Wrap up a bit.
So in it going to court, if they decide to go to court, I think everyone has the right to do whatever they'd like to do. It's a democratic country. People can go and do that. And I guess with everything that we have done correctly, we will go and defend ourselves, and then it will be up to the judges to make a decision.
Nqobani, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to the residents tonight. We appreciate it. That is Nqobani Mzizi, the City Power's Revenue Enhancement Senior Manager.